Okay, so Hilchos Talmud Torah, perek Zayin, halacha Yud Gimel. So there is two more paragraphs just about Nidui, and then the last part is about like revenge. Okay, of Talmid Chachamim. Okay, so mi sheniduhu b'fanav, someone who puts someone in Nidui in his presence. Okay, meaning in the presence of the person who gets the Nidui. In matirin lo ela b'fanav, they can only be matir him, they can only release him also in his presence. So, for example, if I put you in Nidui right here, I can't like do a remote release, right? I have to summon you and then release you in my presence. Niduhu shelo b'fanav, matirin lo bein b'fanav, bein shelo b'fanav. If they put him in Nidui not in his presence, then they can release him not in his presence. So that's also weird, right? Why, if the Nidui can be done, if the release can be done not in his presence, why does that have to like match the way that it was done?
I think the reason is that it can be done not in his presence. Like, Nidui can be done not in his presence.
You think that's weird, you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see why that would be, given the way we've talked about what Nidui is and the role it plays, that it's like a social disciplinary tool kind of. I could see why like...
you want a person to know like why?
Yeah, you would definitely want that, but it sounds like if there is like I think the I don't know the actual laws about this. You can get a restraining order put on someone. You don't need them to be there, right? Like you can. No, yeah, but I'm saying like you don't even need that person to be in. You don't need to like summon them to court and like put a restraining order on them, right?
No,
like,
I think you have to have them.
Yeah, you have to, it can't be arbitrary, right? But I guess
they don't come to court in order.
Right, that would be ridiculous. So the reason why I'm using that analogy is like, let's say someone is going around being mavazei Talmid Chachamim, or going around doing shchitas that are not right. It makes sense to me that you could just instantly put them in Nidui, because he's a hazard, and like announce it in the shuls and announce it in the community, just to stop that behavior from happening as soon as possible, as opposed to like, in other words, yeah, as opposed to like pulling him in for like an official thing, yeah.
I feel like we need Nidui today.
Yeah.
I feel like you gotta dig up that imagination star and say that Nidui is about the person, so that when he's around, it attaches inherently to him.
Oh.
So he's important.
Yeah.
No, it's not to say, but yeah.
It's a good ride for the bad svar that I gave. Yeah.
I mean, you're the one who's saying it's a bad svar.
I am. I'm committed to saying it's a bad svar. Meaning, what you're saying, because the imagination.
Okay, I was saying it was a source. I wasn't being doff to the imagination. It was just, well, it's much more centered on the person who's receiving it. That he should feel it. Yeah. So that when it can attach, it really does attach.
Okay, so
someone's not in the one.
Right. Yeah. So I had a similar idea, and maybe I don't have an answer for this yet, but maybe the idea is like I'm going to use an analogy. Let's say like you're in like a college or something like that, and they give you like a disciplinary like talking down to, or whatever. So like I can see why, if that's how they discipline you, and put you on like academic probation or whatever, then because they had that impact, then you would need to like match that impact for the release. Whereas if it's done like perfunctorily, like on a lesser level, then just through like edict, then it wouldn't make sense to say you need to like summon him to like undo the edict. In other words, like I guess what I'm saying is like this, and I think this is what our ideas have in common. The delivery of the Nidui, it's not just the state of Nidui, the delivery also registers halachically, and that I think we can all agree that being put into Nidui, like putting the guy into Nidui in his presence is definitely a greater like chastisement, or a greater like sending a message than sending it remotely. I realize it's not like halacha, but as a social disciplinary tool, then this would make sense.
Right.
Yeah. The iyun. Now, someone asked last time, what's the difference between Nidui and hatara, like being matir and being mefer the Nidui? So he it's funny. He uses the terms ve'in bein Nidui lahafara. Oh, never mind. Sorry, I misread that. Pretending I didn't say that. Ve'in bein Nidui lahafara klum ela manadin umatirin berega echad. So this means there's no there is nothing between nidui and release at all. Rather, you can be manada and then release him in one moment. In other words, you can do it instantaneously. Once he returns to the good, So like, in other words, there's no inherent time period where you have to be in nidui for a certain amount of time, right? You could, as soon as the guy does tshuva, then you can release him. Okay, I don't know why he delayed that halacha until all the way over here. You would think that he would put that earlier when he was talking about the stages of doing nidui for 30 days, and then cherem. Okay, then, and this is another one. This also kind of goes against what we said before. If Beis Din sees fit to leave the guy in nidui for many years, then they can leave him in it according to his rishus. So it does not sound like what we said before of it expires every 30 days. Sounds like they can just say you're in nidui until like you show that you're doing tshuva. I don't think and we also see that you don't need to do nidui cherem. You can just leave him in nidui for a very long time, So I don't know what to make now of that original halacha of 30 days. Yeah. That was halacha vav in the same perek.
What did you say? According to his rishus?
His rishus, his evil.
Oh.
Like Russia.
Okay.
Yeah. Kafi risho, according to his wickedness. In other words, like the severity. Yeah. So you said
things only in nidui from the time period, but you're not right. That you're in nidui until exit, right? And I didn't like show them in the then you should continue in nidui.
Right. But it sounds like
nidui want to put a time on it.
All right, you're gonna burst. Yeah. What are you gonna say?
There's no steer. In the earlier halacha, it said 30 days he didn't ask to be martyred.
It could be a guy.
What?
You could constantly every day he'd be pestering the Beis Din to be monitoring, and the Beis Din would just say no, you haven't repented.
Right, but my question is why does he have to say manadin oso shnia, put him in a second nidui? Why don't you just say like ein matirin lo, we don't release him from nidui?
I think you can put a time on the nidui.
So you're assuming that this vav halacha is was all tanai that is for 30 days. But they could construct a nidui which is like indefinite.
Well, I don't know what I mean.
Makes sense.
That the Rambam
Yeah, that's my point, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't bothered me that they have either option.
Yeah, no, it's just fine because it didn't say like they put him in nidui for 30 days.
I wouldn't put this halacha.
Yeah. The spacing is weird, right? Going back to this guy's point about like they should have this today. The closest thing that you see this today, and even though it's not exactly the same, is and I don't know how modern this is in this degree, but with what do you call it? With the iyun situation of people publicizing husbands who refuse to give their wives a get. Publicizing online to like create the social ostracism, they don't actually, I've never seen them put people in nidui for that. I mean, that's not on the list of the 24, right? But the I think the phenomenon that we see in our modern Orthodox world,
culture kind of stuff, or like the social.
Well, that's in a secular example. I'm saying in halacha, like the closest thing we see is like when people announce like, oh, so and so is refusing to give his wife a get, and like they plaster his name and picture all over everything. Yeah.
Right. There's not a halachic requirement for anyone to actually relate to them anyway. It's up to you.
Right. Yeah. It's pure social pressure. There's no halachic backing. Yeah.
I'm not like
yeah, but not so much in the modern Orthodox world. That's more like in the Haredi world or So that's why I just meant in terms of like in the world that we're familiar with. Yeah. Okay. So that is halacha yugimel 1. Okay. Yugimel 2. V'chein imra u'besin lahachrim lazeh l'chatchila. If Beis Din wants to skip steps and put this guy in cherem right away, right? Not nidui first, just cherem. Ulhachrim, and this is a more extreme thing. You would think there's nothing more extreme than cherem, right? But there is. Ulhachrim misha ochel imo v'shose imo. They could also say that they can put people in cherem who eat or drink with this guy. Umishi yamud imo ba'arba amos, or someone who stands in his 4 amos. Machrimin, they can do this. Okay, why? k'dei liyasro u'k'dei laso siag l'Torah ad shelo yifritzuha hachataim. In order to chastise him, I would have said chastise. Makbili says litzaro, to afflict him. Ukdei laso siag l'Torah, and to make a fence around the Torah. Ad shelo yifritzuha hachataim. Now, this text says so that the sinners do not breach it, meaning breach the Torah. Okay. Side point in my fancy new Rambam on Al Torah. So we see, if you look at the manuscript, it does seem that this is a possible case of Taimani differences. So the Rav Shelat edition says ad shelo yifritzu hachataim. So two changes. One is shelo yifritzu as opposed to yifritzu ha. Okay, and hachataim. Oh, is this one the same?
No.
Oh, so this is the same. So there's a difference between this and something else. So first of all, let's just go over the difference. Yifritzu means so that the sinners should not breach, which is pritzus is like a general mashal for like doing inappropriate things or like breaching halacha. But yifritzu ha would be like breaching Torah, you know? So he says, Rav Shelat points out in the footnote here that in okay, I'll have to go into this in the other thing. What happened basically was, so the Rav Makbili edition was based on Yemenite manuscripts, and the Yemenite manuscripts were commissioned during the Rambam's lifetime. Okay. However, what happened was they commissioned 3 copies of the Mishnah Torah. So the Yemenite scribes themselves are reliable. Okay, like if you're a Yemenite sofer, you're going to make sure that you do what the Rambam says. However, the Yemenites sent basically an order for 3 copies to be made. So we don't know who made the copies. And the 3 manuscripts made their way to Yemen, but they had differences between them. You know, and this is where Kafach relied on those, but Kafach also relied on his personal manuscripts that he had, many of which were stolen. Not by him. I'm saying he had a bunch more, and then they were stolen from he was robbed basically, and they were gone. But he will rely on, and I think Rav Makbili will rely on the Yemenite manuscripts over the Rambam Sefer Hamuga, over the one that Rambam signed off on. So here, this little footnote here means Tuf 1 and 3 means that in Yemenite manuscript 1 and 3 it says Yifritzu ha, which is where Rav Makbili got it from, because he's going based on the majority of the Yemenite manuscripts. But in the Rambams, this is the one that is signed off by the Rambam himself. It says Yifritzu. This is the Sefer Hamuga. So this one's more authoritative in this case. Yeah.
Who stole
them? He writes about it in. There's a translation. Kafich intro, introduction, Mishnah Torah. We went through this last year. Someone translated. Oh yeah. We didn't read through the whole thing. Let's see, stole. Yeah, he says that I thought about undertaking this work many years ago when I was young, when I saw the need for a work of this kind, as a result of the extended and eternal occupation with the Mishnah Torah by its many students, to provide the reader with the greatest possibility to understand the words of Maimonides as originally intended. I was especially motivated by the attachment of my grandfather and father to the ancient manuscripts. They spared no effort or resources to obtain complete and partial manuscripts, even single pages, purchasing them at high prices and paying agents to search through Genizas to find any page or half page from the work of Maimonides, in addition to the searches which they conducted themselves, as I described in my preface to the commentary on the Mishnah. A portion of the material which was piled in their bags is now in my possession, except for that which was stolen when my books arrived in Israel from Yemen, not an insignificant amount, as I recalled in my introduction to the Guide for the Perplexed. Yeah, so it was stolen when we got to Israel. Can you imagine, these were preserved throughout all the years? Yeah.
When you get to where they belong in the first place. It's like finding your keys to your house, getting all the way home.
Yeah.
To finally unlock the door. And that's
yeah. Tragic. Yeah. So that was one correction. And then the other thing, which is more subtle. So this I do think makes a difference in terms of how you're understanding why they are making these. Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And then this one matters less, but I think it's still interesting. Okay. So he says here, so the dufus, okay, the dufus, the printed Rambams say chotin. Okay. Now you might think that this is not a difference, but no, I was going to quote a source, but never mind. I gotcha. Okay, so I don't know. I can't explain grammatically how this works, but how did he put it here? Yeah. Okay. So apparently, okay. There's chataim, which is like sins. Chotim, which is those who sin, and chataim, who are sinners. And then this is the point. He says, "V'im hakavana l'chataim, chataim yoser chamor mechotim." So chote is someone who has done a sin. Chataim are people who are sinners, like people who are like characterized by their sins. The thing I was going to quote isn't. Do you know if there's a thing that Bruria said to Rabbi Meir? This is a famous drasha because it's famous because like it's one of the things that we would quote Bruria and say that she was right.
What's the cause?
Bruria is Rabbi Meir's wife. Hold on a second. You tell me. I think Rabbi Meir davened for the destruction of sinners, and then she says something.
Oh, to pray for their repentance.
Yeah, to do tshuva, and then they darshan this word. I just want to see if this is relevant. I don't even know if it's relevant. Let's see. Okay, so Talmud, Bavli. Yeah. Oh, good. We get vowels. That's even better. Okay, because I wouldn't be able to do this without vowels. Okay, so in brachos daf tes on the beis. You see, you're almost there. Oh, you're doing brachos. I was thinking about doing that Bekius over the summer. Perhaps. You know why? Because I was thinking about doing the riff. Bekius. I move a lot faster. Okay, this is my crazy idea I have is to do riff Bekius. Okay. Yeah. All right. I'I'm not saying that that's crazy to do the riff. I know riff Bekius. Yeah, I'm thinking about pitching it, but yeah. All right.
I'd be down.
Yeah. The reason why. Yeah. No. You know the reason why is because that's the advice that Rambam gave to his student. He says learn the riff and learn the Mishnah Torah and then compare them. And then see like if there are differences, then go into the sugya. That's one reason. The second reason is that the riff only brings on stuff that we have for halacha l'maisa. So I think it'd be really good if to do this. And then the other is Professor. I don't know if I told you about this, right? Professor Chaim Soloveitchik on a podcast was asked. Like he made some comment about how like he doesn't think that the daf yomi trend is like a very good trend for like balabatim to do daf yomi because most of them like don't get any, like they learn it on such a superficial level and they don't do chazara, they don't get anything out of it. So the podcast host asked him like, well, what do you think people should do instead? And he said the riff, because he says doing riff yomi, you could actually like, it's short enough that like you could afford to go more into depth, and it's all halacha l'maisa, like stuff that we do halacha l'maisa, and it's like the roots. No, he's only on stuff he's only on stuff that we paskin like. So like not on any of the halachos that are not practiced with Zman. Yeah.
I don't know what that in the room. I don't know anything.
Because so he said that I know it's not actually Rashi, but there's that pseudo Rashi on the side.
Right.
That I guess someone compiled. I guess we don't know who it is. And you have the Ran and the Rabbeinu Yonah, who do unpack the sugyos, on the riff. I think it'd just be a really interesting thing to do, And if you really want to go in depth, you do the Balma Or and the Milchamas Hashem, Yeah.
And Imara. And they had a whole new thing.
Yeah. I definitely down the fact that I guess I think I think I might even prefer to know that you're wrong with views.
Chas v'shalom. No, you can say your preferences.
I just feel like the rock is just the raw bulbs, so applies to others as well.
Okay, yeah. I'm
not saying the wrong one's bad. I'm not saying the wrong one's
bad.
I
know. Yeah.
Just say that I don't. He was like say so much better than everyone else. Not that it's bad. Not that it's bad.
Okay, well, I'm also offended by that too. Yeah, I mean the premise of this whole conversation is that the Mishnah Torah is superior. But anyway, sorry. Yeah, go ahead. You know which team I'm on. Yeah.
Who was the guy in the Gemara who would go and learn the Rebbe that was like put in prayer?
That's Rabbi Meir. He learned with Acher, with Lisha ben Avuya. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm guessing there they didn't go so far as to do this thing, obviously.
Oh, that's actually a good question. I mean, was he he can't have been put in Cherem, right? Because then Rabbi Meir couldn't learn with him.
Well, or is it the same? I thought you were saying that there's something worse than just regular Cherem. There's Cherem, then there's Cherem where you also.
Oh yeah, correct, right.
So then it's Cherem, but it's just not with that.
Well, I'm saying that they didn't even put Elisha ben Avuya in Cherem according to that Gemara, because if he were in regular Cherem, Rabbi Meir wouldn't be allowed to learn with him. Unless they like made it al Tanai that like Rabbi Meir can continue to learn with
That's
Rabbi.
what I'm trying to understand. So I thought, okay, so what are you saying is extra about prohibiting people from learning with him?
No. It's like this. It's like, so here, let's pretend an imaginary guy here. So I could either put him in Nidui, or I could put him in Cherem, in which case you would have to distance yourself from him. Or I can say, if you interact with him, then you're in Cherem. And that would be much worse, because regular Cherem just prohibits you from interacting with him in certain ways. It doesn't make his Cherem contagious.
Oh, I assume that that's what the prohibition, that's how it was enforced. So how do they enforce that prohibition?
That's a good question. Yeah, I think it's just by saying it's it's halacha. I suppose. Oh, actually, no. We might read this in the halacha. Is there? Wait, did we read all the halachos? No. Okay. Yeah. Where did I see it? Someone. If you are mizalzel in a nidui or cherem, if you like disregard it, was that in the list? If you disregard a cherem or nidui? Mm-hmm. Yeah, Yosef?
Isn't the cherem and the nidui the enforcement itself? And that I assume for a lot of these cases, it's not even functionally telling the guy not to interact, so just tell you everyone else not to interact with him.
Yeah, right. In other words, you can't enforce that because then it's nidui all the way down.
It's like asking who forces how do you force the guy who whips in the bait for the court to whip?
Yeah, right. Right, that sounds like halacha. I would say this one would fit more, if anything, into the Mishlo Kibel. No. I mean, I think Yosef is right that like this is the enforcement. Meaning. The very fact of nidui itself is the law that we. How do I put it?
Ostracism.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no. I'm saying like I'm trying to just re-explain your idea. Give me a second. I mean, I'll use an analogy that I've used before about something else, even though it's not an exact analogy. Let's say like you go to a public pool, and they have like pool rules, right? No running, no diving, no splashing. You don't have another rule that says obey all the pool rules, right? Like that's what the rule is. The rule is don't do these things, So like, and there might be a punishment, but then you don't have like Yosef said, you don't have a punishment for a punisher not doing the punishment, like you can't like at a certain point it has to like stop like that. It just is the authority of the court.
I don't think I'm wondering that. I'm wondering what's the punishment for not if it isn't already being put in cherem.
Yeah.
Yourself, then what is it?
Right. I mean, I see why Chaim wants to say what he was saying, which is that that you could get nidui for not respecting the nidui, because one of the items in nidui is hamazalzel b'davar acham midivrei sofrim ve'im tzarich lomer divrei Torah. Someone who disparages, I think you're right, Chaim. Someone who like disrespects or disparages something that's midrabanan and certainly divrei Torah. And if we go by the Aruch HaShulchan, nidui is in between. It's some sort of like in between thing.
I don't think that like. I have no idea what
right. Correct. But just to clarify one thing though, is that but what they would have to do is they would have to put you, if you didn't uphold the nidui for someone else, they would have to put you in nidui. But the thing he was describing that's worse than cherem is in the cherem itself, they can say this guy's in cherem and anyone who interacts with him is in cherem, like automatically, that'd be like a real stay away from this kind of thing.
Okay, so I thought, so then if they didn't do that and you interact with them,
then they could put you in cherem, but that would have to be a separate act, or put you in nidui or whatever. That would have to be a separate act on their part.
It's like a possibility that they might.
Yeah.
So the other possibility is they do nothing to you.
Yeah, they could do that thing. I mean, you would think that they'd be incentivized to do that because they don't want their Nidui power weakened.
I guess to me, I would feel like they would just automatically say, and if you even like, why would you need it like a?
Yeah, I think you don't. Just same reason you don't like, you don't. If you're a teacher in a high school, you don't bust out the biggest punishments the first infraction. Like then it just takes away power.
I would warn everyone that this will be the punishment if you do this for a big infraction.
Right, but warning is different than actually like building it into the punishment. Warning means that if you do this, then we will punish you, as opposed to if you do this, then you automatically are getting the consequence. And I'm saying that's like pulling out the big guns too early. Yeah.
Also, you only want to have unnecessarily a rule that you will eventually pull out the biggest guns, because in a situation you could end up where you doing this would just destroy rabbinic authority, as in if people like, I don't know, imagine that if they put Ben-Gurion in which probably no, maybe they did or something, it wouldn't matter. That just makes people respect the rabbinate even less.
Right.
You get what I'm saying? There's certain times where just putting someone in Nidui, if he's powerful and popular enough, it won't hurt him, it will hurt you, because everyone will just start ignoring you.
Yeah. In other words, you want to use Nidui the least possible, and like use it very selectively. Yeah. I quoted the wrong thing. It's Brachos Yod Amud Aleph. Yeah. Right. That's a good analogy. Right. Right, exactly. Yeah. Why do you have to violate? Yeah. Why do you have to enforce the Rabbanans? That is the authority of the Rabbanan, that they can make laws. We have the backup punishment system. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah. Okay. I don't think this is relevant now that I'm rereading it. I think this is like, this is not distinction between chotim and chotoim. Yeah, I don't think so. Okay, let's scratch that. Okay, let's go back to this. Okay, now we get to the final halachos in the perek. Okay, af al pi, Yogimel Gimel, good Yogimel 3. Af al pi sheish reshus lechacham lenados lechavodo. Even though a chacham has permission to exercise nidui for his own honor, it's not praiseworthy for Talmud Chachamim to accustom himself to this. Okay, Ella, what should he do? Malim oznav midivrei amei haaretz. He should literally like hide his ears from the words of the amei haaretz, of the ignoramuses, and not pay attention to them. Like Shlomo says in his chachma, gam l'chol hadarim asher yidaberu al titin libecha. Also to all the things that they say, you should not pay attention. Seeing that in context is actually better, because he gives an argument in context. In Kehilchos 7:21, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. He says, also to all the things that they say, do not pay attention. Asher lo tishma es abdecha mekalalecha, so that you don't hear your servant curse you. Ki gam pa'amim rabos yada libecha, because you yourself know that many times asher gam ata kilat achim, that you've also cursed others. Okay, so the just in isolation here, the first application I ever had to do with this practically was when I became a high school teacher, and like you can't, if you're a high school teacher, you cannot be concerned with what students are saying about you, because and then like let your self-esteem get like, dependent on that. And you yourself know that when you were in high school, you also like complained about your teacher when you got a bad grade or whatever, So I think that's the idea there, is that just don't pay attention to it, because you will hear them cursing you. And if you feel this righteous indignation, you yourself know that you've done this also, So I think that's the attitude that the Talmud Chacham has to take. People don't like Talmud Chachamim. Like people hate Talmud Chachamim. That's the all the Gemaras about how people hate Talmud Chachamim, like the Rabbi Akiva one, right? I wanted to break his bone, bite him like a donkey.
Right? I do remember that for sure. I mean, I complained about anyone else, but I never to their face, never even, and not even around where they could hear. So I guess that'd be harder for me to like.
Yeah, I mean, you'd be surprised how. A lot of times when kids think that they're not heard, then they're heard. Yeah.
I guess Colombians are like, they're shrewd. They know.
Possibly, yeah. Okay, so this sounds like a repetition of what he said earlier, right? I mean, earlier he said that chachamim praised themselves. Oh, sorry, that they took pride in, they praised themselves, that they were never, oh no, that's different, that they were never counted to be put another Talmud Chacham in Nidui. This is that they never were menadeh for their own honor. Okay, that's a totally different thing. Okay, right. Yeah, so in other words, like, you have the right to do this, but you shouldn't, because you shouldn't really care about your kavod in that way.
They were never menadeh for their own honor?
Yeah.
They weren't put in Nidui?
No, they never put other people in Nidui for disrespecting them.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so we'll get to this in this paragraph, or the next paragraph. That's how the pious, that was the way of the pious sages. They would hear their insult, they would hear insults and not respond. Not only that, they would pardon the insulter and forgive him. Great chachamim would praise their beautiful actions, and they would say that they never put anyone in nidui and never put them in cherem for their own honor. That's the proper derech for Talmid Chachamim to walk on. Yeah, and he Makbili quotes what would probably let us hear, right? But look at the left side. Im heim shomim eskar pasam v'chashim al elbon regesh hamusar. This is not the Rambam Lashon. Regesh hamusar of Abbas Abrios shebehem mizgabrim ve'inam meshivim migadlus rucham. Okay, that's a separate thing. Okay, fine. All right. So anyway, so that's their thing. But now let's complete the picture. But made of Rambam Murim. When is this talking about that they would praise themselves and not put people in nidui for insulting them? B'shibizuhu ocherfuhu baseser. That's if the person degraded them or insulted them in private. But if someone insulted, degraded or insulted the Talmud Chacham in public, which, by the way, I don't think public here means like in front of a minion. I think it means like other people know about it. I would assume so. Asur lo limchol al kavod. It's asur for the Talmud Chacham to be mochel on his kavod. The machal, and if he does forgo his kavod ne'nash, then he's punished. Shezeh bizyon Torah. That is a degradation of Torah. Ella, rather, nokim v'noter harbe kanachash. Rather, he should be exceedingly vengeful and grudge-bearing like a snake. Ashi vakesh mimena mechila, until the guy asks for forgiveness, v'yasach and he pardons him. Yeah. What was that? Yeah, it does. But I think there's still a lot to unpack here. So first of all, just in terms of the Girsa thing, this is another interesting little Girsa footnote here. So, this doesn't matter, I don't think, but the correct version says Ela nokim v'noter hadavar kinachash, as opposed to notim. Our Rambam Bekius says nokim v'noter harbe. So this is one of these cases where like the dalid was mistaken for a resh. Okay. And the footnote points out here, let me make it bigger. Oh, no, I can't. The footnote points out, I'll hide this, that harbe is in the Taimani version 1 and 3. And they also found this in a Geniza fragment. So he says, Venir Shashibush Kadamhu. It seems like this is a very early error. Okay, fine. But I don't think it matters, the halacha. Actually, maybe it does. You know why? Because it's saying he should be excessive. Whatever, practically it's not going to matter, but like excessive does imply like an extreme. As opposed to just saying you should take revenge. But whatever, the actual Rambam doesn't say excessively. Yeah. So let's just read the Makbili and then figure out the idea. Okay. So Makbili says noter harbe kanachash hamechi shevein lo hana min hachasha. Okay. So why like a snake? This is the thing Chazal say. Snakes bite even though they don't get pleasure out of it. I don't know if that's like zoologically true, okay, but I think it's an analogy here saying, so Rav Makbili is interpreting it to mean, I don't know, I'm not sure what their implication is by that, but Rav Makbili seems to be implying maybe, well, let's see, the Talmud Chacham should be angry about the Kavod Torah, but not about his own Kavod. he should not. It's also for him to take personal revenge. Okay, Pirush Acher, another. Okay, so give me two interpretations. Another explanation: Dimuyo shel hanachash kanachman miyusad kinir al hakasuv. The comparison of a vengeful being to a nachash is based on the pasuk about the curses to the nachash. Ve'eva ashis beinecha ubein ha'isha ubein zaracha ubein zarah. That I will place enmity or animosity between you, the snake, and the woman, and between your offspring and her offspring. Yeah. So yes, the question. So one question is, what's the comparison of kanachash? Okay, that's one thing. And let's read on though. Until the guy asks him for forgiveness and he pardons him. And if the guy does ask to forgive him, he needs to forgive him. And the pardoner should not be cruel. It's also for a person to be cruel and to not be appeased. Ella, and this is just for even a regular person, not just the Talmud Chacham. You should be easy to appease and difficult to anger. And when the sinner asks for forgiveness, you should forgive with a whole heart and a desirous soul. This is the trait of the Jewish people with their proper hearts. Yeah. So, question is here. So one question I have at least is we have the facts. If it's in private, then it's a good thing for the chacham to not put the guy in Nidui. But if it's in public, which we're saying if people know about it, then he should do it, and it's us for him to not do it because it's a bizayon Torah. So my question, one of the questions I have is, yeah, but isn't it a bizayon Torah even in private? Yeah. The guy himself is disrespecting Torah, Right. Yeah. I heard this crazy story, which I don't think I need to turn this off, but okay, so Chizkiyahu said that it's possible that the reason why, so the question again was, why shouldn't the chacham put the guy in Nidui, even if it's just him and the guy? And Chizkiyahu was saying maybe it's because in that case, the Nidui is not going to be effective because it's just going to be the guy's going to say, this rabbi is just putting me in Nidui because he's angry at me, But once it's in the social realm, yeah, right. Yeah, it's not going to be effective for tshuva, right? He's just going to dismiss it, right? Yeah. But I was thinking, so that's one question. So we answered that. The other question is, what does it mean that you should be noter harbe kanachash, like a snake? So, I don't know if this is what Rambam Bekius was getting at, but when he says that the snake bites without hana'ah, I was wondering, yeah, you want to say?
Yeah, I think I'm calling from the sense of my parents.
Yeah.
You shouldn't put on and show anger and vengeance. You shouldn't act with that anger.
Yeah, I think so also. Yeah.
But more put on and show so that people understand that.
Right. Let me actually read the thing from Deos and then frame your idea that way. That in Hilchos Deos, when he's talking about this is 2:3, the Deos that is the character traits that's usher for you to 2:3. That it's usher for you to have. So he says, anger is dea rahi ad l'ma'od. The Tafus says mida. Just changing the Ram. Oh, I don't like what the Rambam uses his own words. I'm going to change it to be like I grew up with. Yeah, that's what the doofus sounds like. Yeah, yeah. This is a very bad dea. And it's proper for a person to distance himself all the way to the other side. And he should train himself to not get angry even on something that's worthy to get angry on. So this is like Kavod Torah, right? It's worthy to get angry on Kavod Torah, but you shouldn't even get angry on that. So too in if he wants to instill fear in his children and his household, or if he wants to instill fear into the congregation if he's a leader, and he wants to get angry at them so that they return to the good, they do tshuva, He should make himself appear before them as though he is angry. But privately, his mind should be at peace. And then this is the analogy. Like a person who's acting the part of an angry man. But he's not actually angry. Yeah. So what Chaim is saying is, this I was thinking the same thing. Kanachash, we're saying the nachash doesn't get any pleasure out of it, which means that's when it says that the chacham should take vengeance like a nachash. It means you should take vengeance in terms of just doing the act of biting, not because of the pleasure that you're getting out of it. In other words, inside you shouldn't be like relishing, like, I showed this guy, Yeah, I hear that. Yeah.
I think
it's possible that, it's possible we've said this. Yeah, last year. Yeah, that it sounds like a likely story about what happened. Were you gonna say something?
Yeah, is hana benefit or pleasure?
It can be both, right? Like Isser hana is what do you call? Is benefit. You can't benefit from it, but let's say we say like kol hanen lo bracha, ma'al, like if you get pleasure from this world without a bracha, then that's like a bad thing. It's not if you get benefit from this world.
Could in this case it be then a snake benefit and not pleasure?
It could be benefit,
because then if a snake might bite without, there's no benefit, but it thinks there has a perception that like it's just doing that from like an instinct of fear.
Yeah.
Then like basically it's saying like, okay, like you should see this as inherently, even if it actually doesn't have an effect on you or something, like doesn't actually mess anything up for you, you should treat it like it does, even if for you has no personal benefit.
Interesting. Yeah. I can see that reading also. Yeah. Unless no, that fits in. It fits into the words you should take vengeance like a snake. Yeah. You have something else?
When you know that you're saying like not like putting it like an effect on you when you're trying to defend the Torah.
Yeah. In other words, it shouldn't be personal at all. It should just be, and if it's not personal at all, then why are you getting upset? Like it should just be like a procedural, like in the same way that like, you would, I don't know, like, I don't know, if like a little kid is running to like beat up another kid, you just like hold him back. Like, you don't get all upset about it. You're just like protecting the kid, here you got to protect Kavod Torah. Yeah.
Do you know the little like proverb or whatever, the allegory of like the scorpion that like crosses the pig's back?
It sounds familiar.
And it's like everybody kept warning him, like, don't, like, he's like, oh, can you help me cross the river? Like maybe it was a dog or something, and they're like, and they told him like, don't like let him cross, he's gonna sting you.
Yeah.
And the scorpion says, I won't sting you. If I sting you, then we'll both drown.
Yeah.
And then he's like, oh, that makes sense. And so he gets up and gives him a ride, and then midway he stings him.
Yeah.
He's like, what are you doing? He's like, we're drowning. He's like, I'm a scorpion. Like I can't help it. Like I have to sting you. Like it's not even it doesn't even benefit.
Oh, so that's what you mean by like the instinctual thing, right? Yeah. I mean, it is true that like if the more attached to Torah someone is, the more they will instinctively defend Kavod Torah. Right. I guess my question. Yeah, it could be both. Yeah, my question is, let's look at the Yerushalmi and see if we can get it from context. But my question is, and this is not a question on anything we've said. Just what if it is? And I think I know the answer. But what if you get insulted? You're Talmud Chacham, you get insulted in public, and your personal emotions are involved in it. So what are you supposed to do?
I think if it is in public, even if your personal emotions are, it has nothing to do with the fact that it still is a public issue of Kavod Torah, and that's a circumstance. Like what's it called? I guess
Timsa is how people say it. It's just like the particular circumstances that happens to be.
Right. It's a circumstantial thing, and so it doesn't. The more important thing is that the important thing is to deal with the Kavod Torah. Like that still needs to be addressed. And it's not like, and maybe you don't have, maybe your personal thing is no one's going to know what's happening in your heart. Like, I think your responsibility is to not make it about.
But here's the thing, though: is the problem is that it is a los aseh of taking revenge, right? Like, if you take personal revenge, then that is a los aseh. So my question is, is the definition of, like, in other words, do we automatically not define this as violating the los aseh because it's for Kavod Torah, or do we say that no, like, if you're personally angry that this guy insulted you in public, so you're kind of stuck in that, like, on the one hand, Kavod Torah has been damaged, but on the other hand, like, that doesn't mean that I can do an Isser Daraisa, of taking revenge.
Well, I guess it's a question of, are you first able to rationally think of what the proper, like, punishment is, regardless of your pain, like whatever it is, there's a punishment for the crime, or are you too personally, like, emotionally involved that you can't think clearly, and you are going to go further and that's, I guess, a question on.
Right. So let's say, though, you can, let's say, like, exactly what the guy needs, but your emotions are still involved in it. And, like,
I think if it's the same outcome either way,
yeah.
I think that's the responsibility is to.
But I'm not so sure either. Yeah. Because taking revenge.
Because it's not revenge anymore. Revenge inherently tends to be kind of like an irrational thing. It's like, I don't know.
Like, let's just, okay. Let's see. We're not going to get dragged into the whole subject of revenge, but there's also a difficulty with the revenge, because we said that, didn't we see a bunch of evidence that, like, it is not, that it's like a monetary thing? Remember this? We were sitting over there. Yeah.
It's the thing, like, not lending.
Yeah. The scythe and the whatever. Yeah. Like, don't lend me your thing because of the thing.
Right. The things.
Yeah. No came. Was in 7? Yeah, no came. Hanokim es chavurah over belos aseh. Shneimar lo sikom. Someone who takes vengeance against his friend violates los aseh. Shneimar, it says lo sikom. Ve'afal pi she'ino loke, even though you don't get malchus, da'as rahi ad ma'od. Interesting. Da'as ra'a. Also, the Timanim change it to dea ra'a. Interesting. All three, not all three, 2 of them do. Da'asi. So it's a bad mentality, I guess. Ad ma'od. Ella ro'ila adam lios ma'avir al kol divrei olam. A person should like, not care about all of the worldly matters. Should hakol eitzal ha'mevinim divrei havai hevel v'havai. By people who understand that all these things are just vanity and fantasy. Ve'inam kedai linkom aleim, and they're not worth taking revenge on. So you can't say that about Torah, though, right? Keta hi anakima, what is vengeance? Amar lo chavira, if your friend says, hashileni kardomacha, lend me your axe, amar lo, or hatchet, whatever it is, ini mashiach, and he says, I am not going to lend it to you. Lamachar, and the next day, tzarach lishol mimeno, then the guy who refused it to you needs something from you. Amar lo, and he says to him, hashileni kardomacha, lend me your axe. Amar lo, and he says, ini mashiach k'derech shelo hishaltani k'sheshalti mimacha. I'm not going to lend it to you, just like you didn't lend it to me. Parzei no came. That is considered taking revenge. Rather, when he comes to ask for it, you should give it to him with a whole heart and not pay him back like he paid you. Does he say anything about the Talmud Chacham here? Or do we just get there on our own? I think we just got there on our own. Yeah.
Well, I think we got there.
I mean, from here, but not from him mentioning the case explicitly.
Yeah, I think we got there on our own from earlier in the day.
Yeah. So just to outline it here. So Chizkiyahu is arguing that if you are, as long as you're doing the right action for Kavod Torah, then even if it's fueled by personal vengeance, then it's not Nakama, because
I don't want to say fueled, because it's not fueled by that. That's what I'm saying. It's fueled for the Kavod Torah. And
but what if it is fueled by personal thing, but you're also restoring Kavod Torah?
If it is, then it would end up with you not doing the right action.
No, but so that's why I'm giving a case. What if it does?
I don't think that case exists.
Well, what if it does? I mean, I could construct a case, but
yeah, consistent.
Yeah,
I don't think you can act against that, which you know.
No.
I mean, what if it is? I mean, do you want me to construct a case? Yeah. Like let's say someone doesn't call the town rabbi, right? Okay. And so the rabbi says, like, and it's in public, right? So the rabbi says, you need to apologize and address me as rabbi.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But let's say like he's personally insulted.
Okay. I would say the personal insult is, it's like they have, it's one of those things where, like, what was it, like, where you tend to associate something as a cause because it always happens after a certain event, but it's not actually the cause, it's a correlation. So I would say, like, okay, fine. There's two different things happening. He's also insulted that the guy that he specifically was the one who he didn't address his Rob. Maybe like, why didn't he do some other rabbi? But also he didn't like the fact it's wrong that he didn't address any rabbi's rabbi. So it happens to be that they share, some, like, there's a root in what they share, but ultimately the action is if the proper punishment should be, okay, well, what do you do in general when a person doesn't address someone as they probably should, who's a rabbi? Okay, so that's what I do here. If I was only angry, I probably wouldn't be thinking about that. You'd probably just be okay.
I mean, I guess maybe I just can't agree with this based on, like, personal experience. Where, not saying this example, but like there's times when someone does something and there is a proper response, and I do the proper response, but I'm angry. So, like, is that,
I don't see anything wrong with that.
You don't see anything wrong with that, right? Yeah. So, and I think I
think part of the problem is more, especially more undercomes that shape. And
right.
Rambam said that there are times when a person can act ignorant but not actually ignorant.
Right.
And if it's only ignorant, then why wouldn't say that?
Right. Yeah.
Like, it's not like you're just acting on anger. It's as if it's got a unique thing that wouldn't have happened otherwise. The anger isn't adding a new reality to what you're doing, to the punishment you're giving.
Well, that's what we're not sure of. Like,
and if it is, then okay, that's a problem for sure.
Right. Yeah, and that's why I'm saying, like, it might be a situation where like I'm kind of like in a catch-22 where, like, on the one hand, I'm punished if I don't defend Kavod Torah, but I would be doing an avera if I, like, if I act out of personal vengeance. Right. And so, like, maybe
I'm also talking from internet deal situation. I like what I consider to be, like, the reality.
Yeah.
I think there is a completely different question to take into account, which is, what are people going to think is actually happening?
Yeah. Yeah, it might be that you still have to do this because Kavod Torah is more important.
Or maybe that you shouldn't do it for your reason because everyone else might think he's really doing it.
Yeah, that's also true. Yeah.
If you're not doing it for reason, there's clearly no concern that you're going to say, oh, he's only doing it for personal reason.
If
otherwise, I'm just going to say it's an act.
Right.
You just hit the home. It's not, no one, like, we're not going to say, oh, you're going to say that, and then, like, no, I'm not going to say that.
Yeah. Right.
Oh, and also the situation they say about that you can do it when it's public. And if they're already saying don't do it privately, then they're imagining that, like, they're not saying don't do it when you're angry privately. They're just saying, all right, in the private situation where maybe you're upset, like, don't do it because it's going to be your personal cover. They're not like changing what your emotions are in this situation. They're just changing the circumstance where like it doesn't seem like it is.
Yeah.
So it makes it seem to me like that they're not excluding a case where someone didn't call me rabbi and I could have gotten upset because it happened publicly. That's enough to say, all right, look, he's acting on behalf of, like, this is a kill of Hashem, basically.
Hold on, he's in private. You know how mad the people who insult you in private, even if you're not upset, there's still a very good happening to say that doesn't matter.
That what doesn't matter?
That you're not upset in private, that you can still do it.
Right. That you should still defend Kavod Torah. Yeah, right.
Right. But we already established why you wouldn't want to do that.
Yeah, I don't think that's connected in the fact whether or not you are. I don't know if that's because of your own.
Right. That may just be like you were saying that it's not going to achieve its effect.
Right.
Yeah. No one's going to say that you should take vengeance if it's not going to do anything. Right. Yeah. Okay. This is a good question. I kind of feel like I would have to go back into the whole Nakama Sugya in order to, like, really work this out, and I don't have the energy for that right now. We could do that after Shavuos if we want to. All right. So barich, rachmana, desayyan, and we're done with Hilchos Talmud Torah for this round. All right. Very good.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Right,